The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a cold glow on the sterile conference room. Across the table sat the man who had once been her mentor and was now her executioner. His name was Victor Langley, CEO of Nexus Tech, a man whose rise to power had been paved with broken promises and stolen ideas. Clara Hayes stared at him, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest, but she refused to let her hands tremble. "You're making a mistake," Clara said evenly, though every word felt like it was being dragged through shards of glass. She clenched her fists under the table, her nails digging into her palms. Victor leaned back in his chair, his tailored suit crisp and unyielding, much like the smirk that played on his lips. "Clara," he began, his voice dripping with condescension, "you've done good work here. But sometimes even good people outlive their usefulness." Her stomach churned at his choice of words, outlive their usefulness. As if she were some outdated piece of machinery to be discarded without thought or care. The irony stung. Clara wasn't just an employee, she wasn't disposable. She'd poured decades of her life into this company, building its foundation brick by brick when no one else believed it could stand. And yet, here she was, reduced to nothing more than another line item on Victor's balance sheet. "This isn't about performance," she shot back, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "You know exactly what this is about." He tilted his head slightly, feigning innocence. "Oh? Enlighten me." She wanted to scream, to throw something heavy across the table and shatter the smug facade he wore so well. Instead, she took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay composed. "It's about the code, the algorithm I developed. You think you can take it from me because you assume I'm too old, too tired, to fight back." Victor's expression didn't falter, but there was a flicker in his eyes, a fleeting moment of unease that told Clara she'd struck a nerve. "That code belongs to Nexus," he said firmly, leaning forward now, his tone sharpening. "It was created under my roof, using my resources. Legally, it's mine." Clara laughed then, a bitter sound that echoed off the walls of the conference room. "Your roof? Your resources?" She shook her head, incredulous. "Do you really believe that? Or are you just desperate enough to convince yourself?" For years, Clara had watched as Victor climbed the corporate ladder, stepping over anyone who got in his way. He was charming when it suited him, ruthless when necessary, and utterly devoid of loyalty. She'd seen him steal credit for others' ideas, manipulate contracts to exploit loopholes, and crush competitors without remorse. But this betrayal cut deeper than anything she'd witnessed before. Because this time, it was personal. "I gave everything to this company," Clara continued, her voice rising now, fueled by anger and disbelief. "I worked nights, weekends, holidays. I sacrificed relationships, missed birthdays, skipped vacations, all for Nexus. And now you sit there, telling me that the one thing I built entirely on my own doesn't belong to me." Victor's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond immediately. He glanced down at the folder in front of him, flipping it open to reveal pages of legal documents written in dense, impenetrable jargon. "These papers clearly state that any intellectual property created during your tenure at Nexus becomes the property of the company," he said, tapping the document with a pen. "You signed them yourself, Clara. Don't play dumb." She felt a surge of nausea as she stared at the papers, each word a reminder of how thoroughly she'd been trapped. Of course they would have clauses like that buried somewhere in the fine print. They always did. But this wasn't just any project. This was hers, her vision, her innovation, her legacy. She'd started developing the algorithm long before joining Nexus, working late into the night on her own time, funding the research with her savings. It wasn't supposed to end like this. "You're lying," Clara said quietly, her voice trembling now not from fear but from fury. "You know damn well where that code came from. You can twist those papers however you want, but it doesn't change the truth." Victor sighed dramatically, as if dealing with an unruly child. "Truth is irrelevant in business, Clara. What matters is what we can prove. And right now, all the evidence points to Nexus owning that code." He paused, letting his words sink in. "So unless you plan to sue us, and trust me, we both know how messy that would get, I suggest you accept this severance package and walk away." The offer hung in the air between them, heavy and suffocating. Severance. A polite way of saying go quietly. As if a few months' pay could erase years of dedication, of blood, sweat, and tears. Clara swallowed hard, fighting back the lump in her throat. She wouldn't cry, Not here, not in front of him. Not while he still held the power to hurt her. Instead, she stood up abruptly, pushing her chair back with a loud scrape that echoed through the room. "You haven't seen the last of me, Victor," she said, her voice low but laced with steel. "Mark my words." Without waiting for a response, she turned and walked out of the conference room, her heels clicking sharply against the tiled floor. Every step felt like a declaration, a promise to herself that she wouldn't let him win. Not this time. As the elevator doors slid shut behind her, Clara leaned against the cool metal wall, closing her eyes and taking a shaky breath. Her mind raced with questions, possibilities, and plans. She knew Victor better than anyone. He thrived on control, on knowing exactly how far he could push someone before they broke. But he'd underestimated her. He thought she was too old, too worn down by years of corporate politics to fight back. And maybe, just maybe, that arrogance would be his downfall. Outside, the city stretched endlessly before her, a labyrinth of skyscrapers and shadows. Somewhere in the chaos, Clara knew she'd find her next move. Whatever it took, whatever the cost, she would reclaim what was hers. Victor Langley had made one critical mistake. He'd forgotten who Clara Hayes really was. Clara stepped out onto the bustling streets of downtown, the cacophony of honking cars and hurried footsteps blending into a symphony of urban chaos. The afternoon sun glared down mercilessly, reflecting off the glass facades of towering skyscrapers. Yet, amidst the swirling crowd, Clara felt an overwhelming sense of isolation. Her mind replayed the scene in the conference room, each harsh word from Victor cutting deeper than any blade could. Walking briskly, she clutched her bag tightly, her fingers brushing against the sleek edges of her laptop nestled inside. It was ironic that the very tool which had helped build her career was now the only tangible connection to her shattered dreams at Nexus. As she navigated through the sea of strangers, memories flooded back, memories of sleepless nights spent coding, of breakthroughs celebrated with coffee-stained mugs, and of the quiet pride in creating something truly revolutionary. The algorithm hadn't merely been a job assignment, it was a labor of love born out of countless hours of relentless effort. Clara remembered the initial spark of inspiration that had ignited her passion, a simple idea scribbled on a napkin during a lunch break years ago. That idea had grown, nurtured by her determination and intellect, until it blossomed into a sophisticated system capable of transforming data analysis within the tech industry. Yet, as she recalled these moments, bitterness mingled with nostalgia. Each success had been met with Victor's patronizing nods, each milestone punctuated by his dismissive remarks about team efforts. Now, standing alone on the sidewalk, Clara realized that none of those achievements had ever truly belonged to her at Nexus. They were always destined to become part of Victor's empire, regardless of her contributions. Her thoughts drifted to the early days at the company, when Nexus was still a fledgling startup struggling to make its mark. Back then, Victor had been different, or so she had thought. He was ambitious, yes, but also approachable, eager to learn from those around him. Clara had admired his drive, his ability to rally people towards a common goal. She had believed in his vision, worked tirelessly alongside him, sharing not only her expertise but also her hopes for the future of technology. But ambition unchecked breeds greed, and greed knows no bounds. Over the years, Clara watched as Victor morphed from a visionary leader into a ruthless opportunist. Friendships were severed, ethics compromised, all in the pursuit of greater profits and higher stock prices. Loyalty became a relic of the past, replaced by contracts riddled with loopholes designed to strip employees of their rights. And now, here she was, another casualty of Victor's insatiable hunger for control. The severance package offered earlier seemed almost laughable, a paltry sum meant to silence her, to buy her compliance. But Clara knew better. Money couldn't mend the fractures in her spirit, nor could it erase the years stolen by misplaced trust. A sharp wind whipped through the street, sending a chill down her spine. Pulling her coat tighter around her, Clara quickened her pace. She needed to clear her head, to escape the suffocating weight of betrayal pressing down on her shoulders. Turning a corner, she found herself in a quieter part of the city, where boutique shops and cozy cafes lined cobblestone streets. Here, amidst the quaint charm, she allowed herself a moment of respite. Sitting at a small cafe table, Clara ordered a strong espresso, savoring the warmth that spread through her veins with each sip. Around her, life continued unabated, couples chatting animatedly, children laughing as they chased pigeons, artists sketching scenes of everyday beauty. In this serene setting, Clara felt a flicker of hope rekindle within her. Perhaps this setback was not the end but rather a beginning, a chance to redefine her path, to reclaim her identity beyond the confines of Nexus. As she gazed out at the lively street, Clara resolved to fight back. Not out of vengeance, but out of necessity. She owed it to herself, to the young woman who had dared to dream big and work hard. More importantly, she owed it to the countless others who might fall prey to Victor's machinations if she remained silent. With renewed determination, Clara pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts until she found the number she sought. Pressing call, she waited, her heart pounding in anticipation. When the familiar voice answered, relief washed over her. "Hey Mia," Clara greeted warmly, a genuine smile tugging at her lips. "I need your help." Mia Chun, her former colleague and closest confidant at Nexus, listened intently as Clara recounted the events of the day. Though separated by distance and circumstance, their bond remained unbroken. Mia had left Nexus years ago, disillusioned by the same toxic culture that now threatened to consume Clara. Yet, hearing Clara's resolve, Mia felt a surge of admiration and solidarity. "We'll figure this out together," Mia assured her, her voice firm yet comforting. "You're not alone in this." Hanging up after their conversation, Clara felt a sense of calm settle over her. With allies like Mia, she knew she stood a fighting chance against Victor's empire. Together, they would expose the truth, challenge the legality of Nexus's claims, and ensure that justice prevailed. As evening descended upon the city, casting long shadows across the pavement, Clara rose from her seat, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The road to redemption would be fraught with challenges, but she welcomed them. For every obstacle overcome would bring her closer to reclaiming not just her code, but her dignity and self-worth. Walking back towards the heart of the city, Clara embraced the uncertainty of her journey. Armed with resilience and supported by trusted friends, she vowed to turn adversity into opportunity. The battle against Victor Langley was far from over, and Clara Hayes was prepared to fight with everything she had. Clara arrived at Mia's apartment later that evening, her mind buzzing with half-formed plans and simmering anger. The dimly lit hallway smelled faintly of lavender, a stark contrast to the sterile office environment she'd left behind. As she knocked on the door, the sound reverberated through the quiet building, echoing her mounting anxiety. Mia opened the door quickly, her dark eyes scanning Clara's face with concern. "Come in," she said softly, stepping aside to let Clara enter. The apartment was warm and inviting, filled with mismatched furniture and shelves crammed with books and tech gadgets. It was a space that reflected Mia's eclectic personality, part artist, part engineer. "I brought wine," Clara announced, holding up a bottle she'd picked up on the way. "Figured we might need it." Mia chuckled, taking the bottle and heading toward the kitchen. "Good call. Red okay?" "Perfect," Clara replied, sinking into the plush couch. She watched as Mia moved about the kitchen, her movements efficient yet graceful. There was a comfort in being here, surrounded by the familiarity of someone who understood her pain all too well. Once they were settled with glasses of wine in hand, Clara launched into her story. She detailed the confrontation with Victor, the audacity of his claims, and the nauseating realization that he intended to strip her of everything she'd built. Mia listened intently, her expression growing darker with each revelation. "That son of a bitch," Mia muttered finally, shaking her head. "He hasn't changed one bit. Always looking for ways to consolidate power, even if it means crushing those beneath him." Clara nodded grimly. "Exactly. But this time, he's gone too far. He's not just stealing ideas, he's trying to erase my existence from the project entirely. Like I never mattered." Mia leaned forward, placing a reassuring hand on Clara's arm. "You matter, Clara. And we're going to prove it. First things first, we need to gather evidence. Documentation, emails, anything that shows you developed the core components of the algorithm before joining Nexus." Clara reached for her bag, pulling out her laptop. "I've already started compiling files. Most of the preliminary work was done independently, so I kept meticulous records. But there's more. It's not just about proving ownership. We need to hit him where it hurts, his reputation." Mia raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Go on." "If we can expose his tactics publicly, it won't just damage Nexus, it'll send a message to everyone else operating under similar schemes. Corporate bullying thrives in silence. Shine a light on it, and suddenly, people start asking questions." A slow smile spread across Mia's face. "Now you're talking. Public exposure coupled with legal action could cripple him. But we'll need allies, people willing to speak out against him. Clara nodded, her resolve strengthening. Start reaching out to former colleagues. Anyone who's been wronged by Victor or seen his manipulations firsthand. Build a network of insiders who can corroborate our story. And media, Mia added, jotting notes furiously. We'll leak information strategically, ensuring maximum impact. Journalists eat this stuff up, especially when it involves high-profile CEOs behaving badly. They spent hours plotting, their enthusiasm growing as they outlined potential strategies. By the end of the night, they had a rough plan in place: gather irrefutable proof of Clara's contributions, mobilize a coalition of disgruntled ex-employees, and orchestrate a PR campaign that would dismantle Victor's carefully constructed image. As Clara prepared to leave, exhaustion finally catching up with her, Mia hugged her tightly. We've got this, Clara. No matter what happens, remember, you're not fighting alone anymore. Walking home under the starlit sky, Clara felt a strange mix of trepidation and exhilaration. The road ahead promised to be fraught with danger, but she was no longer afraid. With Mia by her side and a growing army of supporters, she was ready to take on the world, or at least, one cruel CEO at a time. The weeks that followed blurred into a whirlwind of clandestine meetings, late-night coding sessions, and whispered conversations over encrypted channels. Clara and Mia transformed Mia's modest apartment into a makeshift headquarters, its walls adorned with flowcharts, sticky notes, and hastily scribbled reminders. Every corner of the space hummed with purpose, a testament to their shared determination to bring Victor Langley to his knees. Their first major breakthrough came unexpectedly. While combing through old emails, Clara stumbled upon a series of messages exchanged between Victor and a junior developer named Ryan. At first glance, the correspondence seemed innocuous: requests for updates, casual inquiries about project timelines. But buried within the mundane exchanges was a damning admission. Victor had explicitly instructed Ryan to omit Clara's name from internal reports documenting the algorithm's development. He's covering his tracks, Clara muttered, her voice tinged with both outrage and triumph as she showed Mia the incriminating thread. Trying to rewrite history even before firing me. Mia's eyes narrowed as she read through the emails. This is gold. If we can authenticate these messages, it'll blow a hole in his narrative. Authenticating the emails proved easier than expected. With Mia's technical prowess, they traced the metadata, confirming timestamps and IP addresses that placed the communications squarely within Nexus's servers. Armed with this digital smoking gun, they felt emboldened, their confidence bolstered by concrete evidence of Victor's deceit. Meanwhile, Mia reached out to former colleagues, slowly piecing together a network of allies eager to see Victor toppled. Many harbored grievances of their own: projects hijacked, promotions denied, careers derailed, all attributed to Victor's Machiavellian tactics. Among them was Elena Torres, a brilliant data analyst who had once been passed over for leadership roles despite her stellar performance. Elena agreed to provide insider insights into Nexus's operations, offering valuable intel on the company's vulnerabilities. We need to strike where it hurts most, Elena advised during one of their covert gatherings. Expose his reliance on intimidation. Show the world how he manipulates contracts, silences dissenters, and exploits legal loopholes to maintain control. Elena's suggestion aligned perfectly with Clara's vision. They decided to launch a multi-pronged attack, targeting not only Victor's professional integrity but also his public persona. Using anonymous tips, they fed select journalists tantalizing snippets of their findings, careful to drip-feed information to sustain interest without revealing their full hand prematurely. One particularly ambitious journalist, Marcus Hale, bit hard. Known for his investigative pieces exposing corporate malfeasance, Marcus saw potential in their story. After verifying key details, he published an explosive article detailing Victor's pattern of exploiting employees' intellectual property. The piece went viral overnight, igniting debates across social media platforms and prompting calls for accountability. But the real coup de grace came when Clara unearthed an old investor presentation tucked away in her archives. Created during the early days of Nexus, the document featured detailed slides outlining the algorithm's architecture, slides authored solely by Clara. The presentation predated her official employment with Nexus, providing irrefutable proof that the foundational work had been hers long before Victor claimed ownership. This changes everything, Mia breathed, poring over the slides. With this, we can file a countersuit. challenged the legality of his claims in court. Filing the lawsuit required navigating complex legal waters, but Clara refused to back down. She hired a tenacious attorney recommended by Elena, a seasoned litigator with a reputation for dismantling corporate giants. Together, they crafted a complaint alleging fraud, breach of contract, and intellectual property theft. The filing sent shockwaves through Nexus, triggering emergency board meetings and frantic damage control efforts. Victor, predictably, retaliated with venomous force. He issued a statement branding Clara a disgruntled ex-employee seeking revenge, accusing her of fabricating evidence and orchestrating a smear campaign. But his attempts to discredit her only fueled public curiosity, drawing more attention to the unfolding drama. Behind closed doors, however, Clara faced moments of doubt. The stress of the legal battle weighed heavily on her, manifesting in sleepless nights and gnawing anxiety. Yet, whenever despair threatened to overwhelm her, she drew strength from her growing coalition of supporters. Messages of encouragement flooded her inbox daily, from strangers inspired by her courage to former colleagues rallying behind her cause. "You're changing the game, Clara," Mia reminded her one evening, as they reviewed deposition transcripts over takeout Chinese food. "Not just for yourself, but for everyone who's ever been silenced, marginalized, or exploited by people like Victor." Clara smiled faintly, appreciating the sentiment even as fatigue clouded her judgment. "Let's hope it's enough," she murmured, sipping lukewarm tea. "Because if we don't win this, I don't know what comes next." Mia reached across the table, squeezing Clara's hand firmly. "Then we keep fighting. One step at a time, one victory at a time. We'll wear him down, Clara. Trust me." And so they pressed onward, driven by a shared conviction that justice demanded persistence. Each new revelation, each strategic maneuver, brought them closer to the reckoning they sought. For Clara, the journey was no longer about reclaiming a single algorithm. It was about dismantling a system rigged against those who dared to innovate, to challenge the status quo. As autumn leaves swirled outside Mia's window, signaling the passage of time, Clara found solace in the knowledge that she was no longer alone. Surrounded by allies united in purpose, she stood poised to confront Victor Langley once and for all. Whatever the outcome, she vowed to emerge stronger, wiser, and unyieldingly determined to reshape the future on her terms. The courtroom fell silent as the judge delivered the verdict. Clara Hayes was the rightful owner of the algorithm. Victor Langley's schemes unraveled under the weight of undeniable evidence. Emails, presentations, and testimonies from former employees exposed his deceit. Nexus Tech crumbled in scandal, its CEO stripped of power and reputation. Clara stood outside the courthouse, sunlight warming her face as journalists clamored for statements. But she only had eyes for Mia, Elena, and the friends who had stood by her through it all. Together, they celebrated not just victory but justice, a reminder that courage could topple even the mightiest oppressors. With her creation finally hers, Clara founded a new company built on integrity and innovation. This time, she ensured every contributor was valued, every voice heard. As she watched her team thrive, Clara knew she hadn't just reclaimed her code, she'd reclaimed herself, and inspired others to do the same. Justice served, hearts healed, futures brightened. It was more than an ending. It was a beginning.